Hiya and welcome to this week's episode of Inside Property Development, which is basically part 2 of the one I did with Esther Kurland from UDL. It's all about planning and design. It's my favourite episode ever. I think it's super excellent. It's stuff that I'm really interested in, and hopefully you will be too. I'll see you in there. Please do remember to like, comment and share. Right, just a quick one. Whether you are a massively experienced and well-established property developer already, or maybe you're a new or aspiring one, either way, you will know that it is really not easy to find viable opportunities to come up with the best scheme, the best design that's going to maximise the land value and fully de-risk things for you, and then to go on to get the very best planning permissions as quickly as possible. However experienced you are, you will know that that is not an easy thing. I have put together a super detailed scorecard based on my 40 years experience in this industry, reverse engineering everything that I've learned, including lots and lots of mistakes over the years, and everything I've done to maintain, touch wood, 100% planning track record. I'm pretty sure there will be stuff that you don't know. Go and do that scorecard. Find out just how good or not your current process is, and I absolutely guarantee you will learn at least a little something, if not a ton. So it's bit.ly/MLA score, all in capitals. You can do the Millbank Land Academy scorecard. I absolutely guarantee you will find some interesting stuff, and it will help you get much better deals. One thing that would help a bit is maybe if you're just talking about greening streets and stuff like that. Yeah. Well, it's a big part of the problem. You get how much Section 106 and seal money isn't spent.
There's so many problems. There's so many. I'm talking about concepts. I'm not talking about practice. Yeah. So when you come down to the practice, the concepts don't help very much. But if you don't have concepts, we can't change practice. So it's kind of going round and round in circles. But anyway, that was when the end of the conversation, maybe about density.
Yeah,
it's a very difficult one.
Interestingly, was it the end of the conversation or was it the start?
Of which conversation?
Well, I mean, I don't want to say I know your UDL all over the place. So you're not just London.
No.
I like this. It's almost like a history of planning and how things changed and all the rest of it, right? So back to PPG free, brownfield first, higher densities. Yeah. There was load more flats, lots of townhouses. I don't know about you, probably same as you. I can, apart from the style and the whatever, you can always most see the planning policy that made something happen just by if you know.
I know when that was built, because of that policy.
Exactly. So, this whole thing about pushing brownfield is right, absolutely is right, and it's been happening for years and years and years and years, and stuff has got, most of the viable brownfield stuff has been developed, right?
That's the easy stuff, anyway.
And it's got increasingly unviable and difficult to do. And I think, we developers have been sort of saying that for years, but no one sort of wanted to believe it. And you would say that, wouldn't you? But now it's getting recognised, and that's really what's driven the whole grey belt thing.
Oh God, yeah. I'm guessing the problem we've just been talking about infill is difficult, and densifying established areas is difficult, and then the brownfield sites, the ones which, I was just in Leeds 2 days ago, and we've seen a couple of brilliant brownfield developments there. It's happened. There isn't that much left, which is not got so many constraints on it that the viability of actually these landlocked bits of land, they've got a railway one side, they've got a waterway the other side, they're contaminated, they've got a motorway on the third side, they've only got one bridge going into them, and we're still building on them, which is incredible. I mean, some of the stuff we see is amazing, but there becomes an end to it. So both of those avenues become very difficult. So you have to look at the greenbelt. I mean, we've been in a few workshops and meetings discussing it for the last few years, actually. And the concept of understanding with the purposes of the greenbelt, I was quite disappointed, really, that MPPF, the last one, didn't update the purposes particularly well. So they're negative, the purposes. So it didn't bring in the concept of using greenbelt. The greenbelt is an amazing resource which has been created by planning policy, very strong planning, impact. And I didn't start to say, well, let's use this amazing resource for the communities who in the urban areas they surround. More public access, better biodiversity, better opportunities for recreation and sport in them, better water management through them. None of these things, they're all in the nature recovery strategies, and the answer is, you link the greenbelt to the nature recovery strategy. Well, they're two different things, and in planning terms, the nature recovery strategy doesn't have a leg to stand on, really. It's not a planning material consideration. It can be some form of consideration, but it's not a planning policy. So we ended up, didn't we, with the grey belt policy saying, well, we're going to take out the worst, the poorest performing bits of green belt to build on based on the existing negative purposes of the green belt. Anyone who's watching those are, I know I'm not, it's between us, Paul, see if we can get them right, but there's 5 of them, and they're stopping large settlements from coalescing, the encroachment of the countryside, the setting of historic towns in the greenbelt. That's 3 of them, and then the other 2 are very similar to those 3 as far as I can tell.
They are, oh God.
But they're all about stopping something, basically. It's such a complicated policy area. It's areas which do not substantially contribute to the purposes of stopping encroachment into the countryside.
The key way I think about it is obviously if you're encroaching on or impacting, heritage assets and historic towns actually, then that's obvious. It's really urban sprawl, I think.
Yeah, that's what all the rest of them are basically the same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I just think of it, if it's like, well, I'll give you a classic. I've got a site at the moment in a London borough, of probably the most anti-development London borough, right? It's a green belt. It's surrounded on all sides by development, right? So absolutely, that does not contribute to the main green belt tests. Certainly not the new ones for grey belt. You develop that site, it is not going to contribute to urban sprawl. Yeah. So subject to all of the other stuff about good design, I mean, it's absolute common sense that's for me that site should be developed.
But then there's another test to it, which I don't really understand why the NPPF has not put into the grey belt definition. So you can be grey belt because your land is not contributing to stopping. This is all these double negatives. It's not contributing to stopping coalescence of settlements, encroachment in the green belt, basically. But then you have to say, okay, it's grey belt, but can I build on it? Only if it's sustainably located. Yeah. Why not put the sustainably located in the definition? So it has to be land that doesn't contribute to stopping these things, and it's sustainably located, because people are going to go, well, my site is grey belt, so I can build on it. Hang on a minute.
But I think anyone.
What is sustainably located?
Well,
exactly
800 metres, probably. Some people would say, but
from what?
Amenities,
such as. I'm pushing you.
The shops.
One shop or one bus a week or whatever.
That's the whole thing.
We have no idea at the moment. There's case law coming forward from PINS. But actually, that is just so woolly, because some people are assuming sustainably located is you've got access to public transport and local facilities, like my multi-time place. You can walk to the local school and a shop and whatever. Other people are saying, well, actually, if you've just got a road linking a site in the countryside, well, then you can drive somewhere, so it's sustainably located. But then, of course, we've got the golden rules on top of that, which is 50% affordable housing. Or is it 30% affordable housing?
Well,
it changed,
50 or 15 above.
Whatever the local is.
What it is at the moment, yeah.
So then you were saying, well, a lot of people are going to be living in these areas which maybe can't afford a lot of cars journeys. So what is sustainably located for affordable housing? Is that a different concept of sustainably located for big luxury whatever housing? I don't know what the answer to that is, but it seems like looking at quite a lot of the appeal decisions and stuff like that, and the way I've always thought about it, it's like, if you have to jump in your car to do everything, then probably it's not sustainable. But I'm not sure everybody agrees with that, and that's where I'm sure a lot of planning lawyers and barristers are going to be very busy
even
on this.
More rich as well.
Yeah, they can afford to buy something in the grey belt or build something in grey belt. It's an odd policy, and I personally think it's right that we review the way the greenbelt works, and that we're using land better, and that should include housing in the greenbelt. But I'm not sure. I think it's a very negatively set up policy, that it's not contributing to damage. So but it's not. We're looking for sites which are going to make an area more sustainably located, because we want more housing in it. It means we can start to get some services in. Or we're saying, well, actually that land is better suited for public amenity because of where it is, and people from the city it's surrounding, whichever city it is, can get to it and use it better. So maybe that land should be its purpose. If we had a purpose of the greenbelt, which is to facilitate and support public access to nature and recreation and health, but we don't have, that's not part of the greenbelt policy. And I'm so sad that they didn't actually put some positive functions for the greenbelt, not rather than just negative, stopping things happening. And then we start to talk about the golden rules, which that do include, as well as the affordable housing, include open space. But it doesn't say how much, where, who can use it. It's kind of very, very woolly. So I'm hoping that gets.
You see, the thing is, this is super interesting, because I'm really liking this, because we are, like I say, the main reason for doing this is so that there isn't a fence, i.e. planners on one side of the fence and developers on the other side of the fence.
I'm not a planner, though.
No, I know, but it's good that you've got more that sort of
planning view. Yeah.
You are more that side, because I'm completely the other side in terms of I'm trying to buy sites, get them to stack up, do deals and all the rest of it. Yeah. So I actually quite like the fact that things aren't too rigid, black and white, because otherwise you get 21 metres refusals, 100 have rooms, honestly, or at least you did in the past. So I actually like that there's a little bit of subjectivity to it, and you can have hopefully make your case. And and if it's a good case and you justify what you're doing and the reasons why,
But Paul, a lot of people who are developers don't want that subjectivity. The whole conversation we haven't had about design codes yet, if we need to, was a push very much from the development industry for certainty, so that it's kind of, I think it is a discretionary system. It has to be. That's what we've got in this country. You either make it fully not, or it is. Because if you have a certain requirement, which is there's certainty to it, it's still discretionary whether that requirement is applied to the planning balance. So that's kind of like the whole coding concept of, it's going to be so clear, as long as you follow these rules, you can build here. Well, actually, that's not how the system works.
Of course, we need certainty, right? But you're not going to get absolute certainty, because every site, every location, everything is different, including, and coming back to the whole viability thing. Something might be a greenfield site, all of the services right there on the doorstep. I know about utilities and stuff like that. Super, about like the cheapest thing you could develop. Something else might be a old factory full of asbestos, previously contaminated land uses, cost an absolute fortune to develop, right?
It's going to be different.
So the problem is, so you can't have absolute certainty. And from my point of view, when you get like policies that say, well, it's got to be this way, at least half the time that will never work.
Yeah, because it's a planning balance. So we don't apply all of our requirements in a systematic and consistent way on every planning application. That's not how our planning system works. So that's one problem with having certainty through coding. But the other problem is, to set a clear requirement, you have to have evidence. And we recently had an event on writing policy as rules. And we had the speakers who came from the kind of coding community, as in the tech community, not the architectural coding community. And then we had a lot of planners, and there was such a divide there, because the people who want to write planning policy as code, because kind of like going, well, they love the 21 metre rule. absolutely love it because it's very clear. You've done it, you haven't done it, tick, cross. In fact, AI will tell you whether the scheme meets it and it goes ahead or not. And we're kind of, as planning side of it, the conversation is, yeah, but why is it 21 metres? And what's the evidence to show that that is the right amount? If I'm going to put a new plant, because these existing ones have kind of like they're accepted because they're existing and everyone just takes them like Emperor's new clothes. But any new requirements that come in, I have to be able to evidence that I'm saying do exactly that is right, because I know that needs to be doing because of this research. And nobody in local authorities at the moment has got the time or the money, the resource to do that research, to be able to say definitively you need to do that. So you end up with requirements say you must consider, because they've been told they must put a must in, but they can't say you must stand on one leg because they haven't got the resources to check that what you needed to be doing is standing on one leg. So it kind of like that kind of disconnect in terms of the certainty. There's two elements of the certainty problem in planning. One is it's still a discretionary system. So even if you've got a certain requirement which is clear, it may not be applied in all cases because of the planning balance. And secondly, to set new requirements, very clear requirements, which can be codified, you need the research to be able to say that that is exactly what you need to do in that scenario, in that context, for that site, for that type of development, that site. That's a lot of work to check that in advance. And that's why we come back to a discretionary system where the divide is there, where the planners are going, well, I'm trying to manage this development as DM in the public good and still make it happen. And the developer is, well, I want to make it happen, but I also want to make sure it's good for most developers, I'm sure. So you kind of like, we go back to this built-in difference of opinion or different perspectives. So this this thing we want certainty. For me, the more we did so much work on design codes for a few years, and the more and more I think about it, I'm not convinced.
Because that's an interesting one, and it's probably good to talk around that as the whole point about how fixed or not some sort of rules and policies should be, right? So again, for people that might be listening that don't understand, let's talk about design codes, because I think that's something you're big on.
I haven't talked about them for ages, which is great, actually. So design codes came in as a requirement for local authorities to produce them in, I can't remember, was it the planning? No, what was it called? The Act, LURA. What did it stand for? Gosh, somebody will know somewhere who's listening. Anyway, it came in under the last government.
The Levelling Up and
Regeneration Act, that's it. And there was talk about them before that, and they were in the NPPF before that. And the idea, the concept is a local authority looks at its area. This is how my interpretation of it anyway. Yeah. Looks at its area, says, well, we're going to have development here, and this type of development, and that type of development. Now, let's set some clear ground rules for that type of development that's going to come forward, so that when developers come by those sites or take options and start designing schemes, they know what to expect, what's expected of them, and we'll have a smoother, clearer system through. And we have had examples of coded schemes which have been built out relatively quickly and easily, and coding was already a big part of master planning for large schemes with multiple phases, where you set some ground rules that will be developed in the detailed design phase by phase by phase, so the whole area actually works as a whole afterwards. So codes are not spatial, so you put in those terms, you put the code with the master plan or the layout, the spatial plan for that site, big site, and then you've got your parameter plans and your codes, and they work together. People were used to that. And then the idea was to take that concept of the code and strip it away from the spatial element that was for the big sites where it's used, and just used it for the whole authority. And there was such confusion because there was wording in one of the MPPFs and in the LURA about authority-wide codes. I personally can never get my head around what that was about. And for me, trying to work out what was useful is, well, look at design requirements across your authority and then focus your work down onto where codes are going to be most useful. And the first part of that is talking to the DM teams. What things come up again and again and again in schemes? Can they be codified? Is it about roofs? Is it about basements? Is it about where the parking is or the cycle parking? Is it about bins? What is it that you're negotiating starting from scratch every single time because we haven't got guidance or codes on them, and then write that? That's kind of a systematic and pragmatic approach to using codes to smooth the system forward. And then, have you got certain characteristics or objectives in certain parts of your authority where you were going to require certain design approaches? For example, you've got different types of rural villages. Maybe some of your rural villages are homestead type villages where buildings, the relationship between buildings, they may all be in a line or they may be in squares or whatever, and the roofs are at different angles. So if there's things that are characterful that you want to see taken forward in new development, then in that type of scenario and context, you can code for that type of development in that type of character area or place. So you're looking at your whole authority, but you've got different character areas and you've got different requirements for different character areas because of the landscape or the heritage or the use or whatever it happens to be. So that's kind of the concept, as far as I understood it, as a sensible way of thinking about local authority requirement to write codes. So lots of them have written codes now. But as I said, it's the difference between code and guidance is small. In practice, in concept, is not small. Guidance is more try and do something like that. Code is do that. But as we've already said, is if you say do that, you have to be sure that doing that is going to work everywhere. So it actually ends up more like guidance. So a lot of codes are more like guidance, and it's no bad thing.
Well, I think that's how it should be.
Yeah, it's no bad thing that we've got lot more local authorities who've been proactive about saying what they want in the design of schemes in their area.
Well, two things: having guidance is useful, right? And particularly for people that are perhaps less experienced and don't really understand it all and all this, right? So having guidance is definitely useful. Having really overly fixed codes or local authorities that try to impose them too strictly, I think is potentially really dangerous. And clearly, really good architects and developers should and hopefully would be doing all of that stuff anyway. Like really good architects know this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
If I was an architect, I'd be like, and I know lots of architects don't like this, right? Because they're like, well, we know what we're doing. We will analyse everything and we'll look at the character and we'll do all of that and come up with what we think is best for the site.
But codes, I think the concept is about stopping the worst. It's not about codifying the best. And unfortunately, the majority, I believe, of new housing development in this country is not architect-led. It doesn't see an architect isn't necessarily that involved in the schemes, whether it's small or it may be a building, an ex-building control surveyor who's done something, or there is somebody drawing up the scheme, maybe more and more BAI, but the type of architect that you're talking about isn't involved in a large number of schemes. So the codes are about a bottom level of where that is the case. There is something there. I think from my conversations we've got fantastic architects in this country. We really do have a great architectural community. I don't think most of them worry, maybe they're going to say, I'm wrong, worry that much about codes because they can work with them, because it is things that they would be looking at anyway. And if they come up with a different solution, they can present that in a coherent way that will work. Because again, saying the codes, even though a code is do that, it's like do that unless the planning balance and the negotiation on this scheme means you don't have to do that. So even if your code is very clearly required, it is not like the building regs. You can still get planning permission where you're not meeting it if the rest of the balance works in that way. And that's the thing that people are really positive about definitive coding probably didn't quite get in their heads. But it means that those good schemes can still be what they are with the coding. Is just to try to stop the worst of the worst, basically. That's how a lot of people look at it.
Yeah. Which is fair enough. I mean, I must admit, it's interesting actually. I know obviously what with your, all the award stuff, you must see. I mean, I've got to say, I would love your job. Going around looking at fans.
That is
Can you
pretty amazing.
get me on there if you can?
Honestly,
I would love just going round looking at fantastic, the best of development schemes. I mean, it must be fantastic.
Yeah,
but
you also see a lot.
But that's what I was going to come on to really. But I mean, yeah, you probably see a lot of bad stuff as well, I guess.
So so I'm on quite a number of design review panels as well. So the awards you're mentioning are the Housing Design Awards that Design for Homes run, which the chair now is Joanna Avery, who's the chief planner, MHCRG, and they've been running for many, many years. I think it was 70 years or something ridiculous like that when the planning system was set up. And there's 20 judges, roughly speaking, and you should be a judge, Paul, really. Ask David Birkbeck. Every year we go and we shortlist from 150 or whatever it is applicants. Half of them are completed schemes, half of them are the projects. Of the completed schemes, the shortlist is normally about half of the ones that have been applied for, roughly speaking, maybe a bit less, a bit more. And then we go and visit them. And it is incredible going and visit them every year. And you can see all of the visited schemes on the Design for Homes website, so there's lots of information about them, and you see the trends over the years. This year there's a lot of zigzaggy elevations seem to be this year's trend, but over the years we've seen a lot of different trends. But on design review panels, I do quite a bit of that over the years as well. You see a lot of schemes which are never going to reach a design awards standard, and often which shouldn't get planning permission, to be honest. Training and site visits.
Let's talk
stuff as
well. The design review panel things, because I think that can be that's a really good system in a lot of ways.
Where a panel of independent professionals bring their fresh eyes to a scheme that the developer and their team and the local authority have already been talking about, generally speaking, to each other. Normally about 5 people on a panel. You normally got an architect, a landscape architect, someone who's into sustainability. Though it's just generally people who know a lot about, can read schemes really quickly and give some advice on them. The design review panel does not decide the scheme at all. It's just an advice system for the local authority. The local authority can use that advice when making their decisions, but generally speaking, design review should happen at the pre-app stage, so the advice is informing the negotiation, not the decision making at that stage. It's grown massively, design review. It helps identify any problems early on that could lead to delay or disappointment later on. At UDL, we've been helping local authorities to set up design reviews for a long time now. We do design review ourselves. We do design review of public realm schemes that don't need planning permission for TfL and London boroughs. But we've helped in London. We've now, every local authority apart from the City of London has its own design review panel. So we've helped quite a few of those get set up, and we run a design review network kind of networking system. We just had an event with 100 odd people came to, where we were briefing them on that building safety requirements for tall buildings, so the panel members understand more what the implications are going to be when they're reviewing that type of building. So we do that regularly from UDL's side. And we've also recently published a code of conduct for design review. I'd like to tell you about this actually, if you don't mind, Paul. So because we don't run it, but we know a lot about it, and different people in our team sit on different panels and chair different panels. We, in our role as supporting local authorities, knowing that more and more are setting up their own panels or are using them. So one of these get-togethers we asked everyone to write down what panel they represent on a piece of paper and hold it all up. There was over 60 panels in the room. We didn't even know there were 60 panels around the country, but there were just in that room. And we've started creating a directory of them on our website, actually, so there's more transparency. So more and more local authorities around the country are either using an established panel or they're setting up their own panels. So if you're a developer around anywhere in the country, the local authority may now start be asking you to present to a panel. It is in the MPPF, it says use a panel. So this code of conduct was kind of saying, we're here to help local authorities, right? Let's help you understand what best practice is in design review. So we did a survey in the beginning of this year. 110 local authorities responded saying, what their experiences of design review, and it was local authorities, this was too, experiences of design review, what they like about it, don't like, their worries, their concerns, how they help, how they're funded, etc., etc. And on the back of that, the answers, the responses are on our website, if anyone can see. We drafted this code of conduct with support from, working with MHCRG and others, and we published it a few weeks ago. It's on our website, and it sets out the best practice. If you are taking a scheme to design review and you're paying, I don't know how much you asked to pay, Paul, but let's say you're paying £5,000 for design review or £6,000, I would really strongly suggest that you check that design review panel meets this code of conduct. Is your money going into it? If it does, it will be a better design review.
Yeah.
Transparency, conflicts of interest, briefings, the way the information is used, how the panel is procured, all of that is covered in there, which makes it a better system, because there's concerns about design review being closed shop, about not being transparent, about being elitist, etc., etc.
Yeah.
If it's meeting this code of conduct, it shouldn't be doing those things.
What's the code of conduct? What's it called? If people wanted to Google it, how could they find it?
National Design Review Code of Conduct on the UDL website.
Do you want to give the what's your website address?
Oh, it's urbandesignlearning.com.
Very good. Urbandesignlearning.com. There's lots of other good stuff on there, I know, so people should go and have a look at that anyway.
But on design review, that code of conduct is quite new. As I said, it's been developed with MHCLG as well and others, and it really is kind of like, really just check. Don't use a design review panel. Don't pay for design review if it's not meeting this code of conduct. It's not difficult to meet it, but there are panels out there that are not openly procured. There are a few mates sitting on a panel. There's panels out there which they don't know the background of that local authority. So the local authority should brief the panel. The local authority should never tell the panelist what to say or think, but they should ensure that the panelists know the context of the scheme so that they can be most useful in their advice, etc. There's things like that in there. Code of conduct. Because it's a bit of outside London. It's in early days for design review, and this is just meant to help make sure that it's as good as it can be, useful as. So, do you take schemes to design review?
Yeah, depends what it is and where it is.
Do you want to do it, or because you have to?
Well, I like to think that I'm identifying and addressing all of the things that a design review panel would address anyway and identify, right?
So you can get the support then.
Yeah, well that's the reason for doing it. Is actually it's another tick in the box really, and I try to make sure everything's covered. And on a lot of that, the design review panel have had a look and they've said, yeah, it's great, it's fantastic. And maybe they'll come up with a few little things, and and if they're good things or can be incorporated,
they are,
I'll do it.
Sometimes they are. It really, sometimes, not with you, Paul, I'm sure, but sometimes the architects involved feel that the design review panel is very helpful with their relationship with their client, because they've been saying things to their client, we really should be doing this, and then the client won't listen to them, and then they'll listen to the design review panel. And then at other times, the local authority and the councillors. So sometimes the councillors are sort of like, they might sit in, or the chair of the design review panel might talk to the councillors, so it gives the councillors some advice on design where they otherwise, dare I say it, might end up kind of just talking about what it looks like, because obviously design is not about what it looks like primarily. It's about how it works, how well it's going to last, and also what it looks like. But it's a magic three. So, and not all design review panel, I've been on design reviews where the applicants walked out.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they don't want to be there.
They just got pissed off with what people were saying about their scheme.
Yeah.
Wow.
I've been on reviews where the scheme seems so awful that the panel just goes, there's nothing we can substitute. You just refuse it. I've been on panels where I've felt incredibly embarrassed by what's being said by the panel members, because they obviously don't understand the scheme, or they've gone off on a tangent, or sometimes the panel members do think that they are deciding the scheme.
I've got to say, I have seen some where, because this is the thing, again, it's a little bit like, oh God, I've got to be really careful here. But like, you know, design officers or conservation and design officers, whatever, in local authorities, right? Me personally, right, I never use rubbish architects. I've been doing it a long time. I really am focused on good design. I think all developers should be. I mean, things are hard enough anyway without coming up with shit designs that's literally asking for trouble, right? But then it gets run past, you know, a design officer who maybe 1 year out of university, never actually designed anything in their life, you know, and they want to be the designer. Like, that is a pain.
Well, they might try to redesign the scheme, or they might not be very good at giving comments, and they may be very defensive or negative, or they may fall back on things that they think they should be saying, like, oh, we need defensible space, even though it may not be an irrelevant issue for that particular street or scheme. So that's why UDL exists, is to try to help to inform and support the officers to do the best job they can. And like any community, there's people who are more experienced and expert, and there's people who aren't. A lot of people the officers are very isolated, so they're not learning from each other or others. So public practice has been brilliant, actually. So public practice is putting people who have been designers in private sector into local authorities for a year around the country, and you can really see a turnaround of the culture of how design is approached. Where you haven't got that, and you maybe have some more traditional officers who are conservation and design officers. I was one, my early jobs as well. Then the fact that you're looking at the conservation of historic assets puts you into a mindset that maybe isn't always the best link across to looking at the design of future places. They are different things. They both need to understand three-dimensional concepts and spatial concepts, but the objective is quite separate. So some of the principles being applied are different. So it's I think that's not always the easiest combination of roles, actually. I think sometimes the landscape architect or the ecologist and the urban designer maybe have more in common, but that's my personal view. And I know having conservation and design offices is a very traditional thing in a lot of authorities, because they always had conservation officers, but they didn't have design officers, so they made the conservation officer into the design officer. It's kind of, it's an oddity. Yeah.
That's reminded me to talk about something I wanted to talk to you about anyway, actually quite interesting. Poundbury.
Yeah.
Discuss.
I was there not long ago, actually.
Oh, yeah.
We had lunch there. It's got a very clear identity. It had a vision, a horrible word in planning and design, but it had one and it delivered it. Personally, I wouldn't want to live there. Personally, I find it... One thing I worry about it most is how it... Okay, I'll take it back a bit. The places we value most, generally speaking, and not always, but generally speaking, they mature well. So those three things that are good, good design is something that works well, looks good, and lasts well. Well, that lasts well is ability to adapt and morph and grow and mature and alter. So places that we really value tend to have a mixture of buildings from different ages, different styles, different materials, and not always, I'm thinking Bath or something like that, or Welwyn Garden City, but where even those places, they've got the ability to change. Where you've got something that's built as one thing, it's very hard, I think, for it to change. So it becomes stylized, it becomes dated quicker. And it's the same with some other housing, like kind of box housing schemes of like you say, I know when that was built, because nobody's able to really personalise their home, their property, change that bit of it, change that bit. And so Poundbury is what it is. People who live there, I guess, like it. It's got lovely facilities. It's got a really nice pub. It's got trees. It's got good views. It's got problems with parking. It's got, it's got Waitrose. It is what it is. But how will it be in 100 years? Is it going to be like a sad version of what it is now, or is it going to be Poundbury blossoming into the 22nd century. That's where I think it's less likely to succeed, whereas places which are more organically designed and a bit more variety within them possibly are able to change easier. But I might be wrong. I don't know a huge amount about its layout and design. But what do you think about it?
Yeah, it is what it is. That stuff's not going to work everywhere.
Going back to the grey belt thing, is I'd love to see the grey belt development be required to innovate. Because I don't think we do have enough innovation. And you can say Panbury is a form of innovation and a brave form of innovation in some ways, but it's more about the architecture than it's anything else, I guess. But I'd love to see kind of using the grey belt, like, well, we were talking about codes and we talk about grey belt and something definitive. What would happen if all grey belt sites over a certain size had a code requiring no more than 15% of the site to be car accessible, or had a minimum density requirement of 70 dwellings per hectare, plus at least 20% of the site is open space? That would push it to different typologies.
I've got it. I love it. I've got one where I'm going to be doing it.
Right. So if that was required on all grey belt, because it's grey belt, we would see a revolution in.
Well, I wouldn't say you probably might be a bit harsh to say all grey belt just in case, but I don't know. I suppose as a general principle. Yeah,
and then if you can't, you argue against it.
Yeah.
You know, that would mean that we would be using a green belt, which we've been gifted by our forebears because of the planning policy. We'd be using it to support innovation in design, place design and architecture, and construction probably as well. So we'd start to see things more like the new neighbourhoods around Cambridge. By just those three requirements would totally change those schemes.
I couldn't agree more. Like Marmalade Lane, that's
well,
nice.
You could start asking for co-housing as well, but if you and co-living, but if kind of like just stop building individual semis or detached houses with on-plot parking, and giving over a lot of the land to the access routes to those car parking spaces, and require the sort of Tetris type homes, like we were in the innovation district in Leeds 2 days ago, and seeing the back-to-back homes there's on the river, that scheme, which is still being built out now, I believe, is almost finished, and that reaches about 100 and I think they said it was about 120 dwellings per hectare, something like that, maybe a little bit more. It's difficult, but there's one area of flats in it. But the housing itself is 2 to 3 storey housing. It's got roof gardens. It's got undercar car parking shared. It's got fantastic walkways between the homes. It doesn't have 21 metres between the homes, and it can achieve the density and create a wonderful community neighbourhood.
Yeah, what is that one? I don't know that.
The innovation district. I don't know if it's got a different...
Did you say Tetris?
Well, I was in Tetris type housing. That's the sorts of things you see there. Not so much, but the stuff, particularly in Great Knighton, isn't it? Or Eddington more than Great Knighton. Both of them to a certain extent, but Eddington around Cambridge. So you've got housing that kind of that one and that one are different homes. That one's got its front door here, and it's got a bit of housing here. This one's got its front door here and a bit of housing there. This one's got its garden on this roof. That one's got its garden on that roof, etc. You've got who
are the architects? You know?
There's a variety. So the coding, I think, in Cambridge is supporting this type of housing. In Marley, which is a different scheme, a different architects, they've got muse houses where they've got the garages for the houses over here on the main road. And they've got flats above the garages, blank wall to blank wall, quite close together. Both got good outlooks the other way, and you've got this kind of Tetris type. I'm calling them that. I don't think anyone else is calling them.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. And you can up so that I'd love to see more experimentation of that sort of thing. Maybe experimentation is the wrong word because it's people's homes you're talking about here, but more innovation and more use of that type of approach, which got you get some fantastic green spaces with it, and shared space. Go back to my multi-time place and your home circle and your neighbour space. Spaces you're using with a few neighbours, not masses of neighbours, but a few neighbours, where you can manage that successfully, it seems, through the schemes that have been built in terms of behaviours, etc. And people, it's not for everybody. You can't build like that everywhere. But I think the grey belt is an opportunity to do something, to require something like that, to move, shift it. Otherwise, we're going to see boxes.
I've got a grey belt site where I want to do pretty much what you've just talked about, because I think that will be a really good thing to do. And you can get high densities and make
what is it, 70 dwellings per hectare?
Well, it can be even more than that.
Even more?
I'm actually gonna, and it is grey belt. So if the worst comes to the worst, and I have to go and win it at appeal, I will. I would much rather try to negotiate it.
Yeah.
But so I'm literally gonna. But the problem is, you see, it's interesting from a developer's point of view. If you're doing something a bit unusual, it's a risk, because you don't know whether it's going to be a local authority that, wow, that's really good, we like it and they're going to support it, or it's going to be, no, 21 metres.
You can find out a little bit, can't you?
You can do a bit of research, but this is the thing. As a developer, it's risky enough anyway. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons people do standard stuff. I'm not saying it's right.
I totally understand that.
I'm good, and I don't always do pre-apps, but I will do on this one because I'm going to put two schemes in. I might even put three schemes in front of them. And one of them is going to be standard developers volume housing, which I totally don't want to do, but part of it is just for the contrast. It's do you want what do you think's better? Surely that is better than that,
I totally understand it, and that's kind of like from our side at UDL, we're having those conversations. So we have about 10,000 bookings a year from local authority people at the events, and I hope we raise expectations for the officers who would find something different, scary and difficult to deal with, to give them the support and some confidence and some information to help them deal with that. The people are people, there's different people and there's different motivations for how they behave and act. But without information and without seeing what can be done, without knowledge, then behaviours in the local authorities don't change. They don't change. And it's really sad at the moment. There's government money going into getting more planners, but there's not really government money going into getting more informed planners. It's kind of get bums on seats, use your capacity and capabilities money to get some consultants in and get rid of your backlogs of DM backlogs, which is really important. But it also, I personally think MHCRG really needs to start to think about not just the number of planners, not just whether or not they're using digital tools well, but their own knowledge, experience and confidence, and how they relate that to others around them to change a culture which would support the sorts of things that you're talking about, the experiences that you're having. And often it's not, you can't blame the officers, they just don't know any differently, or they are pushed in that way by managers or counsellors or whatever it is. And planning is very, what is the word? I can't think what the word is, but it does, because of the judicial element of it and the case study bit, planners do tend to copy what's happened before or copy what somebody else has done because they feel more secure with that, because it's got through there. So the concept of precedent is not meant to be part of planning, but in reality I think it really is. So if they've got their fingers burnt with a different type of scheme somewhere else, they're going to be reticent, or seen someone else have a problem with it, then they're going to be reticent to take it forward. They do, you see, like design guides or policy that's been done in one authority is copied somewhere else, and behaviours are as well. Yeah. That doesn't help you very much, does it?
No, well, look, I mean, I suppose all that's done is highlighted the fact that it's not easy for anyone, planners, developers. Hopefully, by talking about this stuff, we can all, that's the whole point, understand each other more, absolutely, and start working together.
Well, it's great that you're doing this, and it's kind of like getting that information out there. And it feels like there is more, like we provide training for the local authorities. So does PAS, Planning Advisory Service. They do a lot of great work with the local authorities, but who does it for the developers? Who provides developers, particularly small, medium-sized developers, with information, support, knowledge, training, anything.
Well, that sounds like an advert for Millbank Land Academy. There's industry organisations. Obviously, you've got the Home Builders Federation of Master Builders, but who are good, really good, really good. But they're a bit more like policy wise, and we're all, lots of us trying to do it. We just got to keep on. If you could wave your magic wand and make one thing happen to get more good quality housing created.
Oh, blimey.
What would that be?
Really hard. I suppose as a policy planner, I would like to see come back, and I haven't thought this through. There used to be a policy in the NPPF, or before that as well, early NPPF, that if you're doing development, take the opportunity to improve a place. It's a very woolly policy, and it wasn't worded exactly like that. But I think as a concept to get across all the elements of the industry, to have that back, because we don't have it now, to understand that change can be good, and we should take the opportunities that change provides to make something better. If you flow back from that, you have to understand context, you have to understand what good design is, you have to understand what people are and what people want, etc. So you have to understand how the environment is working in that place, so you know what you can make better through change. Because I think at the moment we're just going for let's just build change without understanding how we can use it beyond housing numbers. So the betterment at the moment is about more people having a home to live in, which is great, but I think we actually need something more substantial than that for each scheme to contribute to its environment. I don't think that's not that. It just came to my head, Paul. I don't think that's the one thing that would make a difference, but I would like to see a policy like that back, because I think it can flow into lots of things. I suppose what the conversation we've just been having, and what I can say from UDL's side, is more and better informed planners who have the capacity to work constructively and positively with more and better informed developers.
Very good.
Fantastic.
Thanks for tuning in to Inside Property Development. Please remember to like and subscribe. Do join us every week, where we'll be speaking to house builders, developers, experts, planners, and everyone involved in trying to get more much needed housing created the right way. We'll learn together how we can collaborate rather than fight, and by working together we can all help create better places, spaces and homes, and a much more beautiful world.